Terrance Bud Crawford just delivered one of the greatest boxing performances in the history of the sport over the long reigning champion Canelo Saul Alvarez. And I'm going to go over that performance and just exactly how spectacular it was and what it means to the sport of boxing. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the video, and let's get it underway. Now, heading into this matchup, I did say I was picking Terrance Crawford to win this fight by decision, and he did exactly just that. It looked quite similar to how I believed it would, with Crawford being, on the offense a little bit more, putting out more output, being able to stay strategically sound, and he looked amazing doing it against Canelo Alvarez. He was able to turn him quite often, which was, what if you pay attention to Canelo's fights, he is not really good going, laterally. He doesn't cut off the ring pretty well. If you could keep him turning, similar to Bivol didn't do it as good as Crawford did, but Bivol did have a lot of success not sitting in front of Canelo for long, extended periods of time. We've seen that with Munguia. We've seen that with Caleb Plant and also Berlanga. Now, if you look at the William Skull fight, which was, in hindsight, very terrible. Even when you're watching it live, it was very terrible. William Skull didn't put out the output that Terrance Crawford did. He did have, Canelo Alvarez always on the move, but he didn't have the offense to match, which is why Canelo ended up winning that fight. Now, when you mix everything together, similar to how Terrance Crawford did, this is exactly how you beat a Canelo Alvarez. The strategy that not only Terrance Crawford, but Bomac put together for Canelo Alvarez was one of the best strategies I've ever seen. If you look at how Canelo has been winning these fights, you look at John Ryder, Jermell Charlo, Jaime Munguia, Edgar Berlanga, all of those guys were trying to trade with Canelo Alvarez. You're not going to win the power battle against a Canelo Alvarez. I know Munguia had a little bit of success, but look what happened to him. He got dropped quite a few times in that fight and ended up losing. Berlanga also tried to trade power for power with Canelo Alvarez, and he got dropped quite a few times in that fight as well. I know the Skull fight, which wasn't entertaining at all, it did have aspects of success against Canelo Alvarez, which is something that I think Terrance Crawford definitely took into consideration. If you're able to move against Canelo Alvarez, not let him plant his feet, not let him, close you up against the in the corner, those are things that are going to make you successful against Canelo Alvarez. You just have to have the output to match. And that's exactly what Terrance Crawford did. The jab was beautiful all night. It kept, disrupting Canelo Alvarez the entire night. He was unable to get really any offense going. He did have a few moments of success, but me watching it live, I thought Terrance Crawford won the fight at least 8-4. I really had it 9-3. I don't understand how the scorecards were what they were. We'll, get to that Ring AI scorecard too. That was absolutely insane. But I had the fight 9-3, Terrance Crawford 8-4, the worst. He was, even when they did trade power shots, he got the better of the exchanges. Canelo was, flustered the entire night. The jab, the combinations off of, turning Canelo, staying on the pivot, that was beautiful all night. Terrance Crawford was locked in from, round 1 to round 12. Never really had a slip in his game plan. There was a few moments where I thought he should move faster than what he did. Canelo was able to land a couple heavy shots, but most of them were either on the elbows or on the gloves of Terrance Crawford. I think he got hit, by big shots probably like 3 or 4 times, but nothing that really, looked like Crawford was in trouble. And a lot of people thought, Crawford wasn't going to be able to take the big shots. Crawford is not a small man. He was larger than Canelo Alvarez as far as, height goes, had a 5-inch reach advantage, which was absolutely significant because that jab is something that played a significant part in this fight. And, he's always been a strong, muscular guy. He also has that wrestling background, which is why Canelo wasn't really able to, out-muscle him in the pocket. I know he picked him up at one point in the fight, but Terrance Crawford was there all night. He was not going to be bullied in this matchup, and you saw it in his eyes when he walked out. He was ready to put on a performance, and that's exactly what he did. I'm not necessarily shocked by Crawford winning. I think I'm just more amazed in the fashion that he did, because honestly, I was telling all the guys I was hanging out with, he made Canelo Alvarez look like an amateur. I'd never seen Canelo that flustered. Bivol had him a little flustered, but Crawford had him, taking it a step further. Canelo couldn't get anything done. He even said it in his post-fight interview that, hey, this guy is the best. He's better than Floyd Mayweather, which I had another, argument about later in the weekend as well. That I honestly think this version of Terrence Crawford would beat a Floyd Mayweather. Now, I'm also a huge Floyd Mayweather fan. He is probably top two, boxers that ever made me watch the sport of boxing. But I have to give credit when it's where it's due. I do think Terrence Crawford would be a Floyd Mayweather. His defense is spectacular. I have to give you that. He is a mastermind of every aspect of the sport. He can not necessarily trade shots with you, but he will find the shot in between each punch. But I feel as though the mindset of Terrence Crawford is something that can outlast Floyd Mayweather. I know it's easier said than done. A lot of people have tried. A lot of people, 50 people have failed. Almost 51, because I'm pretty sure he'll end up beating Mike Tyson by a decision. But that fight is whatever it is. But I feel as though Terrence Crawford, if he sees a hole in your game, which there were a few in Floyd's, if you can frustrate him long enough, if you can get inside the pocket and, land some pretty good shots on him. We've seen Shane Mosley have success. Granted, he beat Shane Mosley after that. Marcos Maidana had a little bit of success. A lot of people thought that Maidana won that fight, the first fight at least, and, he got schooled in the second one just so he could correct that, that L that a lot of people gave him. But another aspect that we had to throw into the Floyd, 50-0 is he never really faced. Granted, I'll give you, Zab Judah, Oscar De La Hoya. Who else do we got? Not Ricky Hatton, because I believe he fought Ricky Hatton after Pacquiao. I'm trying to go throughout the name. Cotto was on the. It wasn't Miguel Cotto. It was a good version of Cotto, but it wasn't Miguel Cotto. Oscar, Zab Judah, Gotti, which was his, pretty much his coming out performance for a lot of people. The Corley fight was really good, but post, I'll say 2010, a lot of the guys, 2009 maybe, Manuel Marquez, a lot of the guys that he fought were on the downward spiral. Whereas you look at, Terrence Crawford, he's fighting guys either at their peak when they're at their prime, upwards of their prime, or, solidified. Errol Spence, which I thought going into that fight, I thought Errol Spence was going to win, and he got absolutely obliterated by Terrence Crawford. I'm not saying that Errol Spence was a elite fighter, but I did like the style clash against a Terrence Crawford, and look what he did to him. Not that Errol Spence, is trash or anything like that, because he's not. I do think he's a great boxer. It's just the skill set was completely different. Terrence Crawford was able to show how much more tools he had in the bag compared to Errol Spence, who, he had a solid jab, double jab, pump the jab, and then dig to the body. Terrence Crawford was able to, wipe the floor with him. And, he didn't get the knockout here against Canelo, but he pretty much wiped the floor with Canelo Alvarez in this matchup as well. I was amazed just how clean he made it look, how, efficient he was with his shots. I knew he would outland Canelo Alvarez, but he made it look like pretty much a clinic. I feel as though Canelo was taking the harder blows. He didn't really sting Crawford with anything other than the headbutt that really, frustrated Crawford. And, he really just, I don't know where they go from here. I think they're going to end up doing a rematch, but even in a rematch, I don't see Canelo having a better game plan than what he had coming into this match, because if he prepared the same way that he has for everybody that he's fought, and apparently, there's only a few guys there's a lot of guys that style will work on, but it's not going to work on Terrence Crawford. It's not going to work on Dimitri Bivol. So I think Benavidez should be looking at this fight, and I think that's something that Canelo should look into. He could get another payday with a Benavidez fight, but does he want to take that risk? He's already lost. I mean, he's got like 4 losses on his record now, 4 losses. Yeah, 3 losses, and they're not bad losses. Bivol, Floyd Mayweather, and Terrence Crawford. I feel as though I think he should jump in there with Benavidez. He'll get probably an even bigger payday because of how hyped that fight is. Maybe not, because he doesn't have the belts anymore. But even if they do it at 75 or 68, I feel as though that fight is still huge. I don't think the rematch is necessarily what you have to do. But if they do Canelo versus Benavidez, I would definitely be tuned in. And I think Benavidez and Crawford are completely different styles. Benavidez definitely has a lot more power. Not at 175, because we've seen him, struggle, as not necessarily struggle, but not be able to put the performances that he has been at 68 together. So it'll be interesting to see if they fight at 68. As for Terrance Crawford, I don't know what he does moving forward, man. But if I was him, I would just ride off into the sunset, because this was the biggest, win that anybody could have on the record. Canelo Alvarez at the peak, 60, 70 fights on his record. It's not like Canelo was, he's not necessarily old. I know he's 35, but he still was, he hasn't looked the same. He's definitely been slowing down, but it's still a prime version of this new evolved, walk forward and bang type of Canelo Alvarez. But this performance was one of one. I don't see a lot of people having the same success that Terrance Crawford did against Canelo. I feel as though maybe the only two people that could beat him are Terrance Crawford and possibly, Dimitri Bivol already beat him. Terrance Crawford, and I want to see what that Benavidez fight looks like. I don't know if they do it. I hope they do, because that's definitely something that needs to be answered before Canelo retires. But we'll see, man. As of right now, I do have Terrance Crawford over Floyd Mayweather, over Canelo Alvarez, over Manny Pacquiao, whoever you want to name. I think Terrance Crawford is probably top 3 boxers of all time, with the feat that he's just, accomplished. 3 division unified champion. It's never been done. Dude went up from 135 to 168 and has won belts all throughout those weights. 135, 140, 147, 154, now 168. This is big time stuff, you know what I'm saying? So I got to give Terrance Crawford his respect, and I do believe he is one of the greatest boxers of all time. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I was amazed by this performance. If you thought, Canelo was going to knock him out, let me know in the comments. If you want to see the rematch, if you want to see Benavidez versus Crawford, I don't. Or if you want to see Benavidez versus Canelo, let me know what you guys think both of these guys should do moving forward. But I have to give congratulations and a toast to who it belongs to, and that is Terrance Bud Crawford. Omaha. I'll see you guys on the next one.